started. Here we are, Peter McEvoy, my political pundit. I used to call him guru, but he thought it was a religious terminology and said stop immediately, which I did. It's awfully good to see you.
Good to see you, Rowan.
Your sides will be sore with laughter, dear political pundit, as a consequence of the shenanigans that have been going on at Stormont this week, going to resign knowing not... There's only one way Robinson would have resigned. If he had thought he was going to get an overall majority and control all of unionism in an election, he probably decided that wasn't going to happen.
Well, yesterday, I suppose as far as the week's concerned, I was trying to think of a really good superlative or a really good way of describing it, and I thought back to the old satirical programme used to be on years ago. That was the week that was. And it really was.
Bang on.
We went from bang to bust to bang again, like on that job.
Yeah.
So, no, Robinson, I think yesterday was probably day before yesterday was probably contemplating stepping aside for Arlene like he did when the whole thing blew up with his wife and so forth.
Oh, yeah.
And that would have given him time. See, Robinson wants a way out, right? This may have been the sort of note he could go out on, right? He's been wanting a way out for a while. But I don't think he's the only one who's come out badly out of this, you know? I think whatever opinion public have of politics, and it's pretty low, this week made it even lower, if that's possible, you know, because there are so many people spinning about how little they knew about this whole thing that, honest to God, it just beggars belief. If you take, let's take the unionists for a sort, suppose, for the start, and maybe should we do a wee explanation as to what this is about?
I think it'd be important. I would think it was important.
People who don't know.
Right. Bradley said that everyone in the policing board did know.
Yes.
Andrew's fixing you up with a mic here to make sure we can hear you.
Not operating.
No, it's a question really just to think of the...
Andrew, thank you.
Getting that... There we are.
Perfect.
Keep that lead loose, and that's the way to do it.
The position about the letters are concerned, or if we go back to where the letters came from.
Blair's Day.
If anybody is as yet believes that Tony Blair was not capable of shabby, dirty deals behind the scenes, they don't know much about politics. Because Tony Blair probably pulled the greatest scoop of all when he presented what was essentially Tory policies as Labour policies and called them New Labour and got into power. He couldn't have done that otherwise because the great British public were not ready for a left-wing Labour government. So for a start, his whole sort of raison d'etre has been to present himself as something other than he is. But I mean, if we're talking about shady deals here, the unionists have got to remember that this whole statelet was set up on shady deals with Lloyd George back in the 1920s and James Craig. The shadiest of shady deals and promises that were made, like the Boundary Commission, for example, which were never kept, right? And loads of others which we haven't time to go into. But the fact remains that this type of settlement, if you can call it that, was brought about by subterfuge.
Well, Haynes said it the day before yesterday, who was the Secretary of State at the time. He said it was part of a process that needed to be engaged upon. Well, Jerry Kelly said exactly the same thing from Sinn Féin.
People have to ask themselves, do we want to go back to the days of, like Donald talked about earlier in your interview there about 50,000 people marching through Newry. Do we want to go back to that time, or do we want to move on to what we've got now, which, believe it or not, is better for most people than it was. The fact still remains, of course, that there are a lot of people out there who have been hurt very badly in the Troubles. I, thanks be to God, I'm not one of those, not directly.
But everybody's been affected. We all knew people.
We all knew people, but I personally cannot say a member of my family was murdered. So I'm not in any position to assume anything as far as victims are concerned. But I can tell you something, there is no politician, I don't think, in Stormont, either in that position, right? And as far as these letters were concerned, does somebody mean to tell me that the unionists, especially Paisley and definitely Robinson, with all of their connections within the police, did not know about these letters? Oh, yeah. Forget about whether they were told by the government or not, because it was a case of three wise monkeys. You know, don't ask and don't tell. So, if people in this town, for example, were walking out to the Ardmore, right, to collect their letters, and this is what happened. This happened in Derry, and it happened
and
here.
There were also letters of pardon from the Queen handed out to them in the Canal Court Hotel.
Correct. If that was happening, do you mean to tell me that nobody was going to leak it? Nobody was going to say it
So
happened.
what we're saying is people knew about them, but they were paying the price of that subterfuge for peace.
They were paying that price. It was part and parcel of a lot of other things that people had to swallow. And on that score, and this is something which has struck me over the week, I have yet to hear a commentator, or have yet to hear a person in the British press or a person in Northern Ireland comment on the fact that nationalists and Republicans suffered under the IRA just as well as unionists. It's all about unionist victims.
My children lay in their classroom over opposite Curry Square Police Station on the floor as bullets came through the porticabin.
The fact remains, unfortunately, is in actual fact that the IRA killed more Catholics and nationalists than the British Army and the police put together. Which is
statistically easily ignored by loyalism.
Exactly, and the English commentators as well. Even Powell came out yesterday and said that he could understand the anger in unionism.
This is the special advisor Powell.
Special advisor Powell. The guy who has signed, I think, 50 of the letters or something like that, you know. Powell's right-hand man, or sorry, Blair's right-hand man. But of course, the other thing he said, which was very interesting and which we all knew as well, was that the DUP were very, very happy to go along with this subterfuge and this deal, providing it could be hung around the neck of David Trimble of the Unionists, which I think absolutely encapsulates their whole plan to take the Unionists out so long ago. Trimble, I'm surprised, hasn't come on the scene to say something because he has been vindicated as far as that's concerned. And of course, this so-called judicial inquiry, which Robinson has now got, which suddenly...
Hold your thought for a second. We'll come to the judicial inquiry in a moment. But try and answer me this. If Villiers is saying the letters are meaningless, if they don't count for anything, this week, the case against the man accused of the was thrown out of court on the basis of one of the letters. How do you square that?
Judge Sweeney has had the best. Judge Sweeney's court record judgment is probably the best reading of all, because what he has done is the unions are throwing this thing about get out of jail free card, which trivialises the whole thing. He has actually given the best get out of jail card you could get to people in the future, because he has said that should anyone produce one of these letters, they cannot be taken to court, right? They cannot be tried. Now, that is a judgment in fact, and that is there for every lawyer to pass to. In fact, if you get pulled for speeding on the Warrenpoint Road now and you manage to get a letter, you'll be able to turn up in front of Eamon King and the thing and say, I have a letter. It says I'm not to be prosecuted.
And Eamon will let you go.
And he'll have to say, I'll let you, if it's come from a lawful authority. So in this case, in this particular case, there are now, I think the last count, there was 220 of these letters out, right? The interesting thing is, and this really underlines what we have thought of all along, is that this joke of a justice ministry over here, Ford, has come out this morning and realised that there are 5 of these cases on his desk, except they're not in his desk. They're with the Northern Ireland office, right? And he's the Justice Minister and he says he knows nothing about them. As we speak, there are 5 of these people, letters, call it whatever you like, going through the system. And the Justice Minister is not there. I don't think he should be there anyway. Because
is it the case? Is it the case that both Cameron and Robinson are buying time with the judicial inquiry?
Well, you'll notice the reports coming out after the elections. About a week after the election, I think the report comes out. Robinson was looking for a rescinding of the letters. That's gone. That was 24 hours ago he was looking for that. He was looking for a full judicial report. Dodds is out this morning and he's calling it a judge-led inquiry as opposed to a judicial inquiry. There's a world of difference.
Absolutely.
And of course they keep pointing to the fact that, we can't go into one of these long drawn-out inquiries. It'll go on for years and people will have forgotten what happened and spend a load of money and all the rest of it. Well, if that happened on the Bloody Sunday inquiry, which it did, it was because of the total intransigence of the British government and the state forces who challenged every line. So if it cost 300 million and it ran for 12 years, do not blame it on the people of Derry. The blame for that lies fairly with the efforts to try and whitewash the whole operation. But of course, you know what's going to happen is we're going to get, as Blair referred to it recently when he was talking to your woman Rebecca Brooks in the News of the World thing. We're going to get a Hutton-style inquiry, right? We'll bring in some guy who's pretty tame. He'll not want to upset the government because the government might have his appointment to decide on further down the line, and he'll spend a few months sifting through stuff, and he'll come up with a report, and by that time the elections will be over. The DUP will know how strong they are or not, and everybody will be happy, and we'll read the thing and say, what was that happened? And in 6 months from now, people will wonder what it was all about.
Because as you were saying, most of them knew about it at the time anyway. They could not have known about it.
It also be remembered, and when unionists bandy this thing about get out of jail free cards, none of these people are in jail for a start. None of these people, even in some cases, actually, a lot of these people perhaps do not have that much evidence against. We don't know. A lot of people were lifted on the word of individuals and supergrasses and what have you, and were let out again. And they then were afraid to go abroad in case they got arrested. Apparently Downey tried to get into Canada and tried to get into America and wasn't allowed, and then decided he would go to Greece for his holidays and gets arrested at London Airport. He'd been through London Airport about 3 occasions before.
Can Downey sue now for damages as a consequence?
I'm sure I thought of that.
And Kelly has withdrawn his action.
The one thing I think they should do, though, and I really don't, to me, I'm surprised given Sinn Féin's penchant for presenting things as, they're presenting themselves as the calming forces now. I am surprised that they're not intervening in this party, which is to be tomorrow night in Donegal, which would be grotesque. Yeah. That would be grotesque. It doesn't matter who.
That's the welcome home dance for the boy, Mr. What's his name?
Where they've booked a pub and all the rest of it. That would be wrong. And I'm surprised, knowing the spin machine of Sinn Féin, that they haven't dampened that down or even cancelled it. And maybe they will yet.
Maybe they will yet.
Maybe they will yet. You know. But it is a bizarre thing. Everybody has had a go. Everybody has had their say. They've had an outing. To me, if it was been really cynical, I would say the whole thing was an election stunt. Honest to God, I would. Life was extremely dull at Stormont. It was watching paint dry was probably really exciting compared to some of the debates were there. And all of a sudden, we've had a brilliant week. We've had coverage that we never had before. People who generally wouldn't get on television have got on television, and all of that's happening now. That's been very, very cynical. I understand that, but the fact remains that a lot of people at different levels, at civil servant level, at police level, knew that these letters were out.
It's at this stage,
and they can't say at this stage that this is a big shock, horror, surprise. You know?
But it's also, they can't say, as Robinson has said, that the letters are meaningless pieces of paper.
Not after Judge Sweeney's. His judgment. No.
So
they can't. I mean, there's no question about it. It is an extraordinary situation. And it is a diabolical situation if you think about it in the terms of law, order, and justice, that someone can order a letter. Like, I mean, for any government official now to come out and say that there's a separation between the judiciary and government, they'd be laughed out of court, because it means that a government official, somebody like your man Powell, can sign a letter which completely, absolutely does away with the rights of a judicial hearing. And that's a hard one. Stuff. That's a hard one. I don't understand it. In the end of the day, I can see from that point of view why people are very exercised about it.
So apart from that, Mrs. Kennedy, how did you enjoy Dallas?
Sorry, I've lost you there.
It's the old you're with me now.
I'm with
what else? Yeah, that was bad and terrible. But apart from that, what else was there in your week?
Oh, this week? Well, there was very little else politically in this week. The council business is still not sorted in town, in the sense that we still don't know who all the candidates are going to be.
We know where they're going to sit, because they're spending 100,000 on putting in a place for them up on the hill.
That is amazing, and we were just talking about that last week.
Where?
And I don't understand that, because they are doing that in Down County Council. There's also a load of money already been spent, so they can't sit in both places. I think a large marquee like we used to have for the dances years ago out in Hilltown would be a good idea. And we could accommodate as many as you like.
I would I would. It's good.
You know, the only thing I'd be concerned about is who's going to sit in whose knee, like in that, because there was around the Dáil a while back there about a TD who got another TD to sit on his knee. So I hope that doesn't happen in Newry and Mourne Council. Otherwise, we've got a bigger scandal on our hands.
It's nice to know that we're affluent enough to have all of this expenditure.
But no, it is. There's going to be I'd be very concerned with the rates bills that are going to come down the track. Not this year, because they're going to come out before the election. So this year they're going to be dampened down. But I'd be very concerned when I see the costs of this, because I think I saw a figure during the week for the transition, 1.3 million. Where on earth would 1.3 million go on what's been proposed? They've already spent whatever, they spent 300,000 on the room, you know.
And the people spending the money will be gone.
The people will be gone. Oh yeah, they'll have gone, and they'll say, well, they'll comment from the sidelines and so forth, like me.
Go well. God bless you. Your comments were always useful and very, very focused. Thank you.
Rowan.
Some music, sir.